Morning, Stefano. You're with Jack Tame on NewstalkZB. I'm in the hot seat through to midday today. Before Martin Devlin takes the reins, he's already skipping around the office. Right, we've been talking about it all morning. Managing the narcissist in your life. I think that, as soon as I saw this subject, I thought of one person. I'm sure many of us have thought of more than one person. I'm sure some of us are feeling a little introspective this morning as well. Stephen Dromgool, our relationship expert, is with us. Kia ora, good morning.
Morning, Jack.
Maybe it would be good to start off with just defining what is narcissism.
Yeah, that's a really good question. But it's one of the things that often when people are writing in or giving a description of their partner, say, I think my partner's a narcissist, or and it can become a bit of a buzzword and it gets overused. So the first thing I want to say about it is that narcissism is a completely normal human developmental stage that we go through. There's two peak periods. The first one is the sort of the 2 to 5 year old stage,
right.
And then the second period is the kind of the teenage phase of development, between about 12 and 16, 17. And
some teenagers it lasts a little longer, maybe.
Yeah. Well, at that stage, you'd expect them to start developing out of it, but during that phase, the brain's doing a lot of reorganization, a lot of development. Kids, the young children are developing that sense of like, who am I? What's important to me? What do I need in life? And so if you think about 4-year-olds, they're kind of like need machines. There's this whole world out there. There's chocolate, there's fire engines, there's dolls, there's all this stuff, and they want to get it all. And so their capacity for pleasure and joy is massive. And so they have this sense of not really being able to see other people as people in their own right. Mum is the feeder, the cleaner, the pick me up, put me down, machine, but she's kind of like an object. She's not actually a real person. So I had this really quite cute example that my daughter's for one of my birthdays wrapped me up a doll, one of her own dolls, as a present for me for my birthday.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of two ways to look at that, and so the one of them is clearly this wasn't well attuned to to my deepest desires for a birthday present, but on the other hand, there was this part of her that was wanting to kind of get in and to give a gift, and so what she did was gave the gift that was most valuable to her.
Yeah.
And so so there's that mix of that narcissistic thing. I can't actually see that you're not someone who really plays with dolls. But underneath that developmental age of saying, I want to express my desire to be giving, to be loving, and all of those kind of things. So, and so basically a narcissist is really someone who gets really stuck in that. And it's on a continuum. We're all narcissistic to some extent. To the extent that we get hurt or we get developmentally damaged or we're in a state of high arousal, then our level of narcissism is going to be much higher.
Right.
Yeah.
But is there a distinction between narcissistic behavior as adults and purely selfish behavior?
Well, that's a good question. So narcissistic behavior, by definition, will be selfish. But yeah, no, I think the difference is the narcissist literally has the inability to see the other person as a separate entity. And we actually have a very high profile, really good example that we hear a lot about on Twitter. And so what you've got there is someone who's a very well-known, and actually someone that, because there's been a lot of study about him, we actually know quite a lot of information, about him.
Yeah.
And so developmentally, one of the issues that was really interesting was they said that when he was growing up, the servants and people who were interacting with him were never allowed to tell him no.
This is Trump, by the way, in case anyone
hadn't quite picked that up. Yeah. And so basically that's actually one of the core parenting jobs that you need to do is to help children balance that thing between it's basically the difference between needs and wants. So I want this thing, but I might not need it, and what I want might impact negatively on other people.
Sure.
So setting limits, getting kids to do chores, reminding them that they're not the center of the universe actually helps children, because then they're not responsible for the entire universe. And it gives them a sense of security and a sense of being, but it also locates them in the community. So narcissists fail to get that. And so what happens is they become, in a sense, slaves or driven by this need to always have more, and they essentially become slaves to their wants. So what happens is when you're in a relationship with someone who's a narcissist, they're not seeing you as a person, they're seeing you as basically a source of supply. So what can I get from you? So one of the issues you're going to have, Jack, as a media personality, is you're going to find that there are going to be people who are attracted to you because, oh, he's famous, what can I get from that relationship with you? But we all have things that we can give, to other people. So it might be status, it might be money, it might be security, it might be kudos, all of those kind of things. And so the thing that messes most people up when we're dealing with narcissists is that we don't know how to, we tend to treat them like we're dealing with someone who's developed properly as an adult. And so then when someone treats us badly, and a narcissist treats us badly, we get angry.
Right.
Yeah?
It's pretty hard not to get angry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But between emotionally kind of developed adults, anger is a signal that you've hurt me.
Right.
And so it's a signal to the other person that we need you to modify the behavior that you're doing.
Yeah.
But for a narcissist, the anger is basically an obstacle. And it might be a signal that we're in a conflict, and narcissists are really good at conflict because they're always fighting to maintain their supply line.
Right. So they're going to double down.
They're absolutely double down, triple down, quadruple down.
Yeah, right.
And then at the point in time that you behave badly in response, which is certainly something that we've seen with Trump and other politicians and stuff, he can then turn around with absolutely no shame at all and say, I can't believe you swore on national television. I can't believe that you're being so mean. And people are like,
yo,
what
dude?
It's crazy, mate.
Yeah,
How can you
Yeah.
just say this with a straight face?
So how do we game theory them?
Yeah, and that's basically what it is. When you're dealing with narcissists and the narcissist in your life, if you're in a relationship, like an intimate relationship with a narcissist, you're going to need some help. Because just to basically help you negotiate that, and we've actually got a friend of mine who's a consultant from the US, and he specializes in that, and so he's going to be quite busy, doing some work. His name's Dan, but you're going to need some help. But if you also sort of look outside of your relationship, so your parents or a co-worker or extended family member, the key to remember is you need to manage them. And so basically what you need to understand is narcissists are motivated by what works for them. Okay? So you can't appeal to their sense of fairness.
Justice or...
It doesn't work if they don't like it.
Feeling any point in saying, I don't think of anyone else but yourself.
Yeah, and they'll look at you like,
no, I don't.
Or they might say, I'm always thinking about other people, and so that's why I've decided we need to, and then state whatever the heck they want. And you're just a terrible person because you're not thinking about everyone else, and then you're going to start feeling slightly insane and crazy. So narcissists often tend to create a sense of emotional fog around them, because you think, am I actually going crazy? Like, did he seriously say that thing and expect that was okay? So the key is, if you are dealing with someone who's actually a narcissist, what you want to do is you manage it, and you manage it by motivating them, which means that you don't play the game.
Right.
Yeah? Which is a lot easier than it sounds, but there are a couple of things that help. So the first thing is, when you're dealing with a narcissist, you're dealing with someone who's operating from a 4-year-old brain, which means that they're primarily about instant gratification, and they're going to be relatively predictable.
Right.
Yeah. So in a certain situation, if Trump sees an opportunity to cheat, to lie, to steal, to win, he's going to always go for those opportunities. He's always going to tend to go for short-term gains over long-term gains. And so basically what you need to do is to pitch a short-term gain in front of them, and make the behavior you don't want them to do unattractive in some way.
Right.
And so at a Christmas event, you've got someone who is always going to be kind of drinking and stuff or whatever, and say, look, there's not going to be any alcohol at the event, and at which point in time they might decide that they're not going to come, and that you're a terrible person, all the rest of it. Don't get hooked into the game. Just set it up like that. And so then the other thing is, recognize that if you are getting angry, you're probably going to lose.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you just need to be super cool. Yeah.
Well, it's, as you say, it's really hard to be super cool all of the time, but recognize that when you're angry, just disconnect from them.
Right.
You know, just walk away, turn away, get out of the situation until you can calm down and figure out how to make it less appealing.
Yeah, because you're going to be so much better at coming up with those, thinking of short-term gains to the narcissist that play into your hands.
Yes.
If you can think about it dispassionate.
Yeah. Because in essence, when we get angry, we actually go into our more narcissistic brain.
Ah, okay.
And so
And
then
then
we've
you
got
just
two
get
narcissists,
two
but they've been
narcissists.
doing it way more than you because that's their normal developmental state. So they're going to be better at it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. I like that. Yeah.
And then the other thing is to the extent that you can limit your involvement with them. You know, if you have a friend who's a high level narcissist, they're not a friend. You know, to the extent that you can manage them out of your life.
Okay.
Which is pretty hard.
Sounds
if the
brutal,
narcissist,
but yeah.
If they're your parent or if they're your partner, then that's not a great outcome. And often what you will find, and again, developmentally we are all narcissistic to some extent. Looking at someone when they're really upset, when they've experienced significant loss and they're being narcissistic, that doesn't mean that they are a narcissist. It means that they're struggling. But someone who, in the cold hard light of day, is not able to make those stretches in your world, to the extent that you can move them out of your world, let them find someone else to be a supply source.
Okay, great. Hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Stephen. Great advice as per. We'll make sure it's all up